Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by the Adam Meakin, joining in my introduction. Thank you very much indeed. 10th Man, Brian's Logic, Neil, Refracted Curvature, Righteous Force. Did I miss anybody? I don't think so. And a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning. Good morning.
Oh,
Hey, good morning.
hey, good afternoon.
Afternoon, everyone.
Good to have you all. Welcome, welcome. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet getting in the way of stuff, formerly known as a horizon?
Never seen it. No one ever has claimed to see it.
Well, in the mathematics, it exists below surface level. That point of tangency called the horizon in Earth curve maths is below surface level.
Impossible, given that the horizon we see is developed by where the surface level meets the sky in terms of the definition of a horizon. That would make it a second horizon. So when they say we don't see that horizon, it's never to be seen, what they're basically saying is, like we say, the horizon in our maths Earth curve isn't to ever be seen. It exists below surface level, and surface level, in the definition of a horizon, creates the limitation that we see at that point, where the sky appears to meet the ground, or sea. Therefore, the horizon only exists in the maths. In fact, that was a quote from Rumpus. The geometric horizon, that's Earth curve, only exists in the maths.
Well, funny to that, the refracted horizon only exists in the maths below surface level as well, too.
So even if you refract the horizon with the 7/6r derivation of the r that's below surface level that you can't see, and we debunked with the black swan, then you can refract the horizon to a 7/6r increase of the circle that's still below surface level. So a third horizon. We've only got one horizon, and the horizon in the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator marked with an X and labelled horizon is the geometric horizon. But if they add in a second horizon, that would be a third horizon, and we've only got one. Hello, Arwin.
Hello. And then they give credit to this discovery to one mentioned Al-Biruni.
They did. They claimed that the dip angle measurement to the horizon, which would be below surface level, correctly identified by John in this example, is their version of acquisition of R after measuring the height of the mountain to be able to do this calculation off a flat plane.
Right. So Al-Biruni never even factored in refraction when he did this. So how are the modern day ballers bringing in refraction when Al-Biruni never even got it in?
Well, they're using a paradoxical R value to increase the rate of the radial value to increase the circle that they're claiming is the surface level that blocks boats and buildings in the distance at the maths at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. But in so doing, they're relinquishing their ability to measure the geometry because they can't see it anymore. So it leaves them in a paradox. Go on.
No, they can't. They can't say that. Surface level is a plane in that mathematics. It's a straight line running horizontal to eye level.
That's correct.
So they can't.
No, you're right. They can't say that because now, regardless of whether or not you describe refracting the horizon with R, and I describe you not being able to acquire the geometric horizon, both are below surface level. Epic.
So after all said and done, it's just a thought experiment. But in reality, no one's ever been able to match that number with what they see.
What they see would be the surface. This all happens in the maths below surface level.
non-Hawking ballers who say, well, we would never expect to see the geometric horizon because of the atmosphere, and refraction is all the excuses. Whereas Al-Biruni took the measurement of a mountain using a flat plane, then went up there, had a depression angle to the horizon, and the difference between this eye-line horizon and the surface sea level is how he got his ball Earth without refraction being part of it, and said it's 3959. Now, we all know that he could have gone on 2 hours later when the weather was worse and had a whole different math. So what do they do with this when they can't use, if Al-Biruni got it without refraction at all being a constant or even reference, how can these modern day ballers use refraction?
After they've measured a flat plane, just like Al-Biruni.
Why you take the fun out of it?
Yeah, there's not much of a thought going into this thought experiment, it seems like, you know?
Yeah. If I imagine that the world's a ball, I'll just go and make a few measurements off the flat plane we're living on, and then I can turn it into one.
And then when questioned, say, well, what do you expect me to see it? Yeah, I've never seen it. I just know we're on the ball, but I've never seen it.
But that's how they claim they know they're on a ball, is that they can measure it.
Well, that was what you used as the proof that we're on a ball, and justified your ridicule of flat earthers, John, on account of the fact that you were under the impression that you could measure it.
Right. If you can measure it, then you're measuring it, you know? Like, you talk about like how much of this thing should be physically blocked by it. You know, you're still talking about Earth curve.
Yeah. John, can you measure a thought experiment, John?
That measure a refracted horizon is the point. The paradox leaves you in a position where you have to appreciate that you're no longer measuring it. John's reiterating that, or stressing that it, because it is Earth curve. If you're going to assert that Earth's a sphere, a prerequisite is that it has an Earth curve edge blocking your view. That must be there. Now, they've used that against us up until 2020, because they're saying, what do you explain the horizon with, when we can clearly see it's blocking things at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet? So then flat earthers go, well, look, this is beyond the measurements. The item that you say is blocked, not paying attention to the horizon. They go, well, the item is refracted with respect to the horizon that we're claiming is proved as Earth curve in these maths. So it doesn't matter that it's slightly less blocked or slightly more blocked. I'm saying it's blocked, and it's blocked by Earth curve, and that's at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height of feet. And this is refraction with respect to the geometric horizon I'm proving. Then you go, okay, well, now the horizon's beyond where it can be as a hill. What say you? Well, the horizon's refracted also. Oh, so it's not Earth curve getting in the way then? Well, that's the end of their claim. They didn't realise that in 2020 when they first started saying refraction to us. But the moment you say it's refraction, so it's not proving Earth curve. It's not geometrically blocking the boat at a calculable rate, because it's no longer calculable as a geometric blockage. It's not a hill getting in the way anymore. Most of them were far too dumb to realise that when they parroted off refraction to us. Now, what if it's refracted, it's not geometric, and your claim is a geometric claim? Idiots.
John, what was it that kept you a ball earther, John?
Well, I thought I was measuring.
He just said like 10 seconds ago. There's a scene in Zoolander where the David Duchovny, or whatever he's called, character's talking to Ben Stiller about how models have been trained to be super fighting athletes and assassinate various different heads of state. And he explains it in great detail. And then afterwards, the Ben Stiller character accidentally repeats the last line, which was, but why models? Yeah? And the David Duchovny character just says, I just explained it to you, like, literally 20 seconds ago, right? And they kept it in the movie, but that's a bit like what's just happened between Neil and John. So, why? Well, because I couldn't measure it. Here's why I couldn't measure it. Back and forth between him and me about him not measuring it. And then Neil says, so what kept you on a ball? Well, before that point, you could measure it, Neil.
I know that. I want to hear John.
What?
You know, not everybody listening has been listening. There are new people that join every day.
That's a confession, and that's an embedded confession in the most raw you could ever hear. Not everybody listening is actually listening. You mean you weren't paying attention, Neil?
No, I'm saying there's new people on the show, and they would like to hear how John became a
Of
flat earther.
course. There's new people on the show, John. Right? It's not that Neil's not been paying attention up until now and was distracted with something else and wants you to repeat the beginning
Oh,
part.
come on. Come on,
Jesus,
Neil.
John, forget it.
No, Neil
Now
was
he's
just
getting, now he's getting
setting John up
bolshy
for
with
the
me because I've
audience.
called him. Oh, have a go, Neil.
Leave what you want.
I'm only messing with you, Neil. It's just a bit of friendly fun. It's obviously
Put a
because
cork
there's
in
new
it,
people.
Zane.
It's always good to repeat things. I'm just using you as an excuse to do that. Just see that you're being used in a beneficial way. That's all I'm doing.
All right, John. Everyone's been used. Now give the answer.
For the longest time, I thought you could measure Earth curve. And if you're measuring it, then it exists. Then everything is kind of wrapped up in that.
Would that be synonymous with someone with a different argument, but almost the same parameters? Like, for example, man, I always thought those pictures from space was of a globe Earth, but now I've come to find out they don't have any.
That's
Well,
correct.
it's a little bit different because it's something you can go out and do yourself, right? You know, you can't go to space. So you have to kind of take that on faith. But up until January of 2020, I thought I could measure the physical blockage that we call I called the horizon.
Right, but you hadn't. You took it by faith.
No. He said you can't measure anything from space. You can't go to space. But what you can measure, or what he was led to believe you could measure, was Earth curve. It's laid down in the maths. 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet will give you the geometric limitation marked with an X and labelled horizon. That's Earth curve. He thought you could measure it practically. Him, personally, not with a
I
tape
know.
measure, but measure it.
No, I got that. But the fact that he hadn't done it and come to the truth earlier, he trusted people who said they did. So we're back
No,
to trust.
No, it had nothing to do with trust. I
Okay,
had
let me
worked
ask you.
with surveyors before, and when you look at the horizon as a baller, you think you are measuring a physical geometric obstruction to objects in the distance.
Did you do it?
Why are you hampering on this? It matters not. By your question, I can tell that you're segueing the main purpose of his point and trying to redirect it onto the point you made earlier, which I'm not going to repeat. But no, that's not where he's going.
What
It
point is
doesn't-
that?
It matters not if he did it or not. He's not taking it on trust. His point is that he, as a globe earther, looks out at the horizon and goes, I can measure that because what I can see is actually there and is actually Earth curve and it's going to actually block things behind it.
Right, but he'd have to assume we're on the ball to even do that.
He said that. But it doesn't matter that at that point he might say, oh, well, others have done it. I haven't physically done it. That isn't the point.
Now, I'm looking at it a totally different way, but I see what you're saying. So
Good. So that's it. Yeah. So you could measure it until 1st of Jan 2020. There was a justifiable, reasonable man, John, who thought I can measure the Earth as a sphere exactly as it's claimed to be measurable. We have debunked that. And that is the primary claim of Earth curve. There's a reason we do get hung up on the flat plane every day on this question. Why do we get hung up on any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon formerly known as Earth curve? Because that is the primary claim. Beyond space, which you can't visit, you've got a practical way claimed to be measurable to demonstrate to you as the individual that Earth's a sphere. And in the first instance, that's all we measured about. All we did day in, day out on Flat Earth Debate was have the Earth curve calculator shoved in our face. Look, here's the maths for how the horizon's blocking stuff. Let's see a picture. Let's compare it. Okay? So you're saying the horizon's blocking stuff in the distance and we're going to calculate how much it's blocking it by? All right, well, if the Earth was a sphere radius 3959 miles, then every distance to that horizon you're claiming blocks the view of this boat could be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer sighting feet, as your maths dictates. And if it isn't, then it's not Earth curve. You only have to show once that it's not a hill getting in the way, because hills that are physically blocking stuff, that are measurable as blocking stuff, don't move beyond the thing they're blocking the following day.
Not according to Rumpus.
He spent plenty of time arguing with me personally about how much of the Isle of Man was blocked by the physical geometry of Earth curve. So to come back 3 years later and say, oh, we said it was refracted, so not blocking the Isle of Man then? Well, okay, well that's a concession. The fact that you need to lie about it and claim that you were always saying it was refracted when you were claiming it was blocking the bottom of the Isle of Man is absurd and an outright lie. But that's what Rumpus is, a liar. He has to be. He's on a sphere. Go on.
When he said I always refracted it, he said it instead of the horizon for
Correct.
a reason. Because he was refracting the lighthouse with respect to the horizon.
I trimmed it
And
out.
then you called him on it.
Yeah, I
And he
trimmed it
said,
out.
I've always refracted the horizon.
Precisely.
Which made him a liar.
Exactly. When I forced him into saying, I've always refracted the horizon, he was banned. Now, not immediately. I gave him 3 opportunities. I even trimmed it out and put it next to his lie. So it was as clear as it could possibly be with his claim followed by his lie 3 years later. And he, after hearing that and publishing that, still came back in and tripled down on his lie. So I said, you're never going to come back again. You know, the levels of deceit are too high for me to tolerate, I'm afraid. Get lost. You're never coming back.
And he came in ball busters and still triple and quadrupled down. So he's done.
Well, he came in and tried to poison the well, which we all tolerated. We let him have his little speech poisoning the well, telling the audience that we're all idiots. So when he finished his little poisoning the well, I said, well, you're a liar. Here's how. And he immediately started interrupting me. You know, great, as on Friday of last week, and I think I've published this on the second channel. Subscribe today to my second channel if you want to catch up with the uncut and after shows. But I published exactly that, a description of a guy. Now, I published it as the spy who conned me, or this guy who conned me, right? I put it out with this guy doing exactly that, saying he wants me to go to a neutral platform. I'm like, I'm on a commercial channel. I make money from this. This is how I make my living. If you want to pay me, then different story. But then it gets into saying I've never been anywhere. I've not been to any other platforms. So I say, no, I have. I've been to blah, 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 blah. As soon as they're proven wrong, they want to be on a platform where they have control over me in such a manner that when I prove them wrong, they can shut me down immediately. Now I shut them down from interrupting me refuting their claims. And I'm called a scammer and a scumbag for having control of my show. Nathan and his mute button. It's like, what? No, I appreciate that when I refute your claim, you'd prefer that you do what Rumpus does. And just talk straight through it so an audience doesn't get to hear it. Yeah, that's the whole purpose of this being set up, by the way. If anybody wants to look back and listen to the discussions I've had literally with the opponents about why I'm setting up Flat Earth debate, it's because I went out on the circuit and got muted everywhere I went. And I was like, I'm just trying to put my rebuttal to them, and they just turn me right down or shut me down completely halfway through a sentence. Out on the circuit, doing the rounds where people think I'm stuck in an echo chamber. It's like, why do you think this platform exists? It exists because Flat Earthers didn't get an opportunity when they were out on the circuit. I was one of them, going on other people's channels. You know, a few of them I say subscribe to. I went out on, I can't remember what the guy's name was, black guy with a channel that was very Christian. Started slagging off Flat Earthers, offered out the link to join. I joined, started handing him his ass, and he shouted me down, turned me off, muted me, and I was like, this is part of the course. This happens everywhere you go. Same when I went to Steve McClown. You know, same exact thing. He was like, oh, we'll have a 2-on-2 or a 4-on-4 or wherever it was arranged. It was all pre-arranged in email. And then you had a rotating door of about 25 ballers, one after the next, not letting us get a single word out. You're like, these people are scumbag liars. They'll turn you down, mute you, and then put a revolving door of 25 people when they've agreed to a 4-on-4. So you're just like, no, they're liars. So what am I going to do to combat this? Well, the only way to combat it is to do it yourself. Now, at the time, I had absolutely no knowledge how to debate the subject in any coherent way. So I shut the hell up and listened. But that's why this is here. So when scumbags come in and start telling me you've never been anywhere, you're too scared, you're a scared little boy, and calling me a cunt, you're like, no, let's shut this guy down. I have been somewhere. Check out this link. Here's Charles. On the clip, I've put it in. There's me debating Charles, asking him for R, and saying you've claimed to your audience you don't need R. Basically because he can't measure it anymore. That's what we've just been discussing. This is the point of this whole ramble. Charles says he doesn't need R because he can't measure it. I go in, and within 5 seconds of any claim he makes ever, he will require R, and I proved that to him, to his audience, that he's a lying shit. He does absolutely require R. His justification when I hold him to task with his absolute requirement for R was, well, that's just an estimate, in a very high-pitched voice. I'm like, no, that's your concession, mate. You've said you don't need it. Now you're using an estimate. No, you need a measurement. Yeah, that's what I'm here to tell you and your audience. While all of his audience are super chatting him, saying, he's telling Nathan that we don't need it. Yeah, now I've got him over a barrel with all you twats super chatting Charles, giving him money on the basis that he doesn't need R. And then the flat earther comes along and goes, yeah, you damn well do, and I'll prove it, you lying shit. On your own channel to your own audience, while they all back you up with super chats about how you don't need it, until I force you to need it, because every claim needs it. That's what I did when I was out on the circuit recently, away from my mute button. Oh, what happened when I held Charles to task on his absolute stone-cold requirement for R? He muted me and attempted to try and take charge of the questioning process for his R that he needed. All of which got pointed out, to a degree, because he muted me when he lost. Didn't like the fact that I was pointing out his lie about not needing R when it's an absolute requirement. So I got muted. Not because I was rumpusing, because I was annihilating. Again, another reason why I'm here, putting my arguments after listening to people's opinions, after they get their little diatribe out, not when they want to repeat it through the rebuttal. But that's why this channel's here. Tell your friends. We're only about, 22 minutes into the show, and we've already annihilated the globe, proven how you need a flat earth to measure it, justified how they've hoodwinked you into believing the horizon's a physical sphere edge with a donkey-dick bent horizon from a non-measurable geometric limitation at G in this diagram. We've explained it all. This is the cutting edge of flat earth. Share the show. Make sure your friends know. If you're in any way inclined to promote the notion of flat earth, you must be promoting this show. Because as far as I am concerned, it is the only one that actually does that. That and the show's connected, notwithstanding everybody on the panel who also simultaneously do that. But within this little clique that is Flat Earth Debate, we are the only people who do that. Actually debunk the claim that we're on a sphere and point out how, in the case of the diagram that just whizzed by, Al-Biruni measured a flat plane to get there. How there's a geometric limitation at 1.2 times the square root of the observer site in feet. Not the straw man they say it is when it's their own claim. We'll get them to eat their own hat when it comes to them asserting that, because they'll be telling us how non-geometric their horizons are, or how it only exists in the maths when we welcome them to Flat Earth here. That is what we do. Tell your friends, share the show. But we are going to move on. So any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
No, and the thing is, you do it without claiming what we think the horizon is. We just debunk it.
We can and we do.
Good morning, guys.
But not when we're in debate and someone's laying down a claim that it's Earth curve. And at that point, there's a primary role that you must play as a flat earther. Now, you might be able to go back and go, hey, I know back in the day, you used to say something different. I don't care. This is how it is now. The primary claim is Earth curve, and the primary purpose, if you're a flat earther out debating this subject with somebody you feel the notion to convert, because you're self-righteous and feel that you need to go around converting people like some flat earth evangelist, then fine, I'm not going to moan at you. Do as you will. But you need to primarily debunk their claim that the Earth's a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, and every distance to horizon will provide a physical limitation to things in the distance because its Earth curve claimed to be the horizon blocking stuff beyond it. You need to debunk that first. That is literally step one. You want to mention this subject to your mates? Well, then you better damn well be debunking Earth curve as your first thing you do. Because after that point, what have they got to come back at you with? If you want to postulate how you think anything is in the world, why the sky's blue or why the horizon is formed, Yeah, you might want to be their guru after the fact because you feel all smart and intelligent because you debunk the horizon. But make sure you do that bit first. Debunk the horizon as Earth curve. So axial
Good morning,
rotation
guys.
of the Earth-based horizon.
No evidence of axial rotation.
But if the Earth was turning, we'd have two reference frames and things would drift at 15 degrees an hour as claimed in footballs and pendulums. And bullets.
No,
have a
you
modern
debunk
Earth
Earth. If you debunk Earth curve, then it's not a ball, and how can it be spinning?
Check it out, John. He's listening. Yeah, you'll need a radius value for that, and we've debunked that when we debunked their measurement of it.
Yeah, I was getting ready to go there, Neil.
Neil's totally redeemed himself, you see.
Good. I want to say good morning.
Hey, Chocolate.
Good morning, Chocolate. No redeeming. Neil just wanted John to tell his story if anybody there wasn't listening before.
I think Nathan said it earlier when he said every single claim of theirs needs the R value. If you debunk the R value, you don't need to even go to the other claim.
Right. The moment they start holding up sphere models after you've debunked their R value, you go, why are you holding up this? You haven't got a measurement of an R value to claim that we're on a sphere to hold up this model to ask me how my flat Earth version works. Did I make a claim about it? Meanwhile, we've debunked R. You better get an R value if you're going to hold up this sphere to ask me how it works on a flat Earth. Not that I will be, unless I'm making a claim about it, like with celestial navigation. Any evidence that you can acquire an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline?
Just real quick about the model you mentioned of a sphere. Do they have a model?
Not that we've
Or
seen.
do they just hold up flat Earth models?
They just hold up flat Earth models. We haven't been presented with an actual globe Earth model since I've been in this arena, something that QE pointed out to Cathexis. He then used to great effect, and I congratulated him on it, only to find out it was QE's argument after the fact. But yeah, ask them for their model. Let's see it then. Globe model. Let's see it. What's that? That's Google Earth. That's a flat Earth model. Just draw out an elevation profile in it. What's that? You've got a map. You say it's a spherical projection. No, it isn't. It came from the celestial sphere model, which is a flat plane.
Stellarium itself is a flat Earth model, which I'm sure I would trigger some Glovers with that. But it's just showing the celestial sphere model as it relates to the flat Earth you're standing on.
Any evidence that we can have gas pressure, at which we are all breathing, without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
No, that's impossible.
That's about it. We're done. Right, let's pack up. Let's go home. There's no Earth curve, and all pictures of Earth from a sphere, as a sphere, from a sky vacuum called space, or outer space, are debunked. That is basically it. There's no axis to have radial values to give you axial rotation. We debunked R. There's no sphere edge horizon claiming to prove that we're on a sphere, blocking your view. And any pictures that claim to purport to be a sphere from a sky vacuum are debunked because the area itself is fake. We wouldn't have gas pressure to breathe if there was an area above our heads, a vast volume for that gas pressure to vacate into, because that's what gas pressure does. It expands to fill whatever volume it's got, and space would be a massive volume. So we'd all be dead. That's the end of the sphere claim.
There's still another option for them. They can, since there's no real rebuttal to any of these things that we pointed out, their pride could cause them to claim a boycott instead of an actual avoidance.
Boycott of what? The globe? I mean, boycott away.
Of your show.
Who cares?
That's why there's no one in here arguing, because they don't have anything to argue.
Look, if you are that mental patient who's fallen down the hill and is now in hell with us in this little arena, telling the people around you that it's still a sphere and then patting you on the back and telling you that you're right, then you are that mental patient fighting with the nurse trying to treat you. We're the nurse, you're the mental patient. Now, does it faze the nurse that you don't want treatment? No, that's par for the course for the nurse. You all don't want treatment, you're all nuts. right? So what's that? You want to boycott the nurse? Okay, no worries. The nurse will still be doing what the nurse does. It should be inconsequential to you if you weren't a nutter. But the nurse is only there because you're a nutter.
Well, this is just the nurses sitting in the break room drinking coffee, laughing about what the mental patients say at that point.
While they try and get the attention of the nurses and tell the nurses that they need to meet you behind the bike sheds on neutral territory. What a laugh. You're all nuts.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead. 103 people watching. Finally broken the 100 barrier after I was called a scammer by Jaron and crew. Woohoo!
Excellent.
Thank you, everyone who shared the show, by the way. I shouldn't really just ascribe it to the fact that we've beaten a target that we were easily hitting daily before being called a scammer. But yeah, thank you very much, everyone who shared the show. Please share the show. This is the best Flat Earth content you will find on God's green earth.
Correct. My question is science all about building and testing models?
No. Cause and effect relationships based on phenomena observed in nature, not models. Models aren't that.
Okay, because I'm reading something in Wired. I'll bring it tomorrow, but that's what I just read. Science is all about building and testing models.
I mean, you could call a theory. Sometimes a scientific theory gets described as a model, which can be the combination of lots of different validated hypotheses tests, which were experiments, i.e. you actually did prove the cause of the effect, you didn't just validate the null. Not there's anything wrong with that, still validation, still proving something, but either way, if you do see a phenomena in nature, suppose the cause of the effect, vary and manipulate it to see if it causes it, and it does, then you've fulfilled all of the scientific method. At that point, you can form a scientific theory, and some people call them models, depending on how they're utilised, because you're using the information. So, you're slightly sticky wicket with that one, because you've got to really clarify what they've got to call a model. Because if they're starting at the beginning of the process with that model, then definitely not. If they're at the end, after a load of experiments have been done, and they've formed it together into what we would call a theory, then maybe you can, in certain circumstances, have what you'd call a quote-unquote scientific model.
Well, it says that they collect data. Throughout the course, the students collect data and build models of their own.
Stop. That's what I just said. I clarified it before you even did for me. If you're using a model at the start of the process by gathering data, no. Step 1, observe natural phenomena. Step 2, suppose the cause of the effect. At that point, you've already got a hypothesis. You've got a dependent variable, the phenomena you observed, and you've got an independent variable, the supposition of cause of the effect you're observing. Well, at that point, that is all you need for a hypothesis. Unless you're a moron, you can formulate that into a null. If your supposed cause, then the effect you're studying. If your supposed cause, then you don't get the effect you're studying, being the null. That's it. Then you vary your presumed cause and see if it causes it. That's science. Not gather data.
Nathan, when I was a kid, I bought a lot of models of airplanes and cars, and with the glue, and you take it apart. And on the box, it always said what the scale was to the real thing. Does the globe have a real thing that we have a model for that's a scale to it, or just cars that we see in reality?
No, there's no scale. There's no model at all. Like we said earlier, ask a glober. Okay, let's see the model. What's this model of globe Earth called? Does it have everything in it? Where's the gravity? Etc., etc. You'll never find a model. They don't have one. Of a globe.
They have.
Of a globe. Let's just clarify that. There is no globe model. Globe model doesn't exist. There are various aspects of navigation that are claimed to be derived from spherical projections that have been derived from a flat Earth model. That's what they've actually got. Just to be clear. Sorry, 10th. Go ahead.
No, I was saying that we're, especially with my story, hey, that's the car. Look, there it is. Hey, I just built the model. And you could hold them right next to each other, and the scale is there, and you see the real thing, and then you got a model of it. What we're saying with the black swan and other arguments is you can't produce the real thing, but you've got all these numbers and math, and you've got a ball, and you say this is the globe, and Neil deGrasse hits it. But where's the real thing I can match it up to? It doesn't ever show up in reality. The Coriolis Earth base doesn't show up in reality. Angle measurements from a curved baseline doesn't show up in reality. The horizon being Earth curve, geometric, physical, doesn't show up in reality. It's done.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the center of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Doesn't show up in reality.
Maybe if you,
What would you accept as evidence?
as it's not my claim, I don't care. But, you know, you provide me the evidence and I'll assess it based on its validity. But in terms of, well, what evidence do you want? It's like, if you're a policeman and you're presented with a murder scene and they go, well, what evidence do you want? Well, the guy stood in front of me dripping with blood holding a knife would be nice, but, you know, it's obviously your claim that this guy's did it, so you provide the evidence. Off you go.
We have a magnetic north.
That's fascinating. How is that evidence for a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth exactly?
Well, I suppose it depends on how you define evidence.
I'm not defining anything. What are you talking about? Depends how I define it. You define it. Feel free.
How do you explain it on your model?
I don't have a model. I haven't asserted that I have.
I have not then.
Oh, well, that's the end of that. Notice how quickly the argument went away from the claim needing to be justified by me when I said I didn't have a model. For all of you out there that ascribe to flat earth gurus that show you little suns flying along pizza pie pancakes. I mean, we'll ask a few questions that are directly linked to flat earthers that make the same guru claims that you're trying to move away from the heliocentric model, such as the distance to the sun. Any evidence of the distance to the sun? This applies to you too, flat earthers, the ones with models that you get held to task on and generally beaten with.
No, no evidence for the distance to the sun. Light in the sky.
And then what about the R value itself? As that's what they use
shadows.
to claim. Oh, go on. Shadows?
Yeah, the distance to the sun, shadows. The R value proves the sun. Because the 3959 proves why the sun is so big and far away. Because if the sun wasn't that big and far away, we wouldn't be on a globe with a radius of 3959.
How big and how far away is it?
As big and as far away as it needs to be for a shadow
Well,
to work on our 3959 globe.
Are you assuming parallel light? Is that what you're assuming with a curved surface that gives you the shadows?
Who's assuming anything? We know this is the reality.
What's the reality?
That we live on a globe of 3959 miles and the sun is really big and far away. That's why we get parallel light rays. And that gives us the shadows that we see in reality. How do you explain them on your model?
I don't have a model. I don't have a model, but I know that in the afternoon when the sun is not at my 90, but it's say at 30 degrees above the horizon, the trees cast a shadow sideways, whereas when it's high noon, the shadow's right below the tree. So the sun is moving, and its angular relationship to a flat plane is what's the cause of the shadows.
Yeah, but I have backward logic, and it confuses people because people start taking me serious because I have a PhD. yeah, even I'm confused, but I don't even know it. But technically, shadows is all they have as a proof.
Are you going to need a flat earth for that claim?
Yep.
But seriously, you are going to need a flat earth for that claim?
No, because if the sun is really big and far away, then the shadows will match. If it's the right size and the right distance away, then the shadows will match. but they would match. On
Are you talking about parallel?
39.9 miles. Yeah, the light be coming in parallel from the sun.
And how will you measure?
Hold on.
How
What a
will you
coincidence.
measure-
Just one sec. So on screen now, John, I just want you carry on. I won't steal your thunder, but there's a diagram on screen I want you to bring to Brian's attention. Go ahead.
How will you measure the angles of the light rays to assert they're parallel? What are you going to be using as your baseline?
Well, we'll measure the shadows. We'll measure the shadows using obelisks and
Okay. And
uprights.
so the shadows will be projected on what?
Onto the ground.
So the ground will be our baseline.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
So how do you get an angle to assert that those rays are parallel from a curved baseline?
No angle needed. We just need to know
You
what
just
the
said
length
you
of the
measured
shadow
the
is.
angle. You just said you measured the angle off the baseline. Right before
I never said anything about angles. I just said we measure the
didn't
shadow.
say anything about angles, but that's what you're doing. Right, just before Brian does a very pathetic attempt to emulate Baldwin with his I wasn't saying angles. Yeah, you were. Meanwhile, if you're paying attention to the housekeeping questions, this directly ties to the question we ask in regards to any evidence of an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline. This is what's happening. You've just seen the back and forth between Brian, who did actually do an excellent job. Well done, Brian. And John in this regard. But I'm going to plug away. I said last week, I only dispense with the modesty for a day. Sod that. We are the best on flat Earth. This is how you do it. This is how you debunk their claims. Further to that, did you want to get into what's on screen, or did you want to leave that to me, John?
Go ahead.
What did you say about? Can you see this?
Anyway, so
Yeah, well, I'm going to hold you over the barrel for it, Brian. So, what did you say? Parallel?
Yeah.
Like this diagram?
Yeah, like one side of it.
Where's the parallel? I don't see anything parallel in this at all. What are you talking about? You know what parallel means?
Yeah.
What's parallel mean? Because it's not in this diagram.
Well, the parallel means that lines are parallel. They're equal distance from each other along their length.
None of these lines explaining this eclipse here are doing that, though, are they? None.
All right.
What do you mean, all right? All wrong for a
I
globe.
must have been looking at a different diagram.
How are you going to explain your eclipse if you've got parallel light rays? This is a bit of a problem.
Eclipse? Of what?
Of the moon or the earth or the sun or whatever it is you're eclipsing in their heliocentric model.
But it's because of parallel light rays that it happen.
Not according to this description. The occultation is definitely not being described with parallel light in any example. All of the occultation isn't described with parallel light. Incorrect. Why would this diagram have it? Why wouldn't it be parallel in this diagram then?
Well, maybe the diagram is wrong.
Maybe. Or their claim would be wrong because it requires these converging and diverging light rays, doesn't it?
It could be doctored.
It could be a Muppet Vision representation of seeing the side of Earth in a sky vacuum, but meanwhile, it's not parallel.
Well, they're parallel in reality.
No, they're not. If you look at the sun, when have you ever in your entire lifetime looked up at the sun and seen parallel light rays coming off it? I'll tell you never, because that doesn't happen either. They're parallel in Muppet Vision representations like this, with the sun and the earth in the same view, and then you have parallel light rays coming off it. Right? To tangent points, sometimes off the flat earth when you've got a pizza pie sat on the top of a sphere earth that's redundant, that you'll get angles from, even though you denied them earlier. The point being that if you're going to claim that the light's coming in parallel, then you haven't got an explanation for eclipses, even in Muppet Vision. But the light being parallel is only in Muppet Vision, Brian. It's definitely not what we see. The lights from the sun don't do that. They just don't.
No, the globe explains the eclipses perfectly. How do you explain eclipses on your model?
I haven't made any claim about how eclipses would be explained. But what I have got is diagrams of how the heliocentric model explains them, and it contradicts your descriptions with parallel light rays.
You guys claim that the sun is 3,000 miles high.
I haven't made that
So how
claim.
does that work?
I didn't make that claim. I didn't make that claim. When did I make that claim? I didn't. Oh, if you're listening and you're a flat Earth Muppet that makes that claim, this is where you'd be screwed. I didn't make that claim, Brian.
Sorry, I can't hear you. You're claiming it's 3,000 miles to the sun?
No, I haven't made that claim.
Oh,
But
you,
see,
you didn't hear
what
him
size
when he
it-
said
how far
he'd
away-
make that claim?
Well, I didn't hear him
like
telling me
your
I'd
balls,
made that
Brian.
claim. I heard him tell me I've made that claim, and I'm telling you I haven't.
How far away is the sun then on your flat Earth?
I have no idea. I'm not using it to make any claims. Meanwhile, you're using it in a description of why the moon most recently turned red.
Well, it seems to me that you're just attacking established globe Earth scientific facts, and you don't even have your own distances to the sun.
I'm going to hope that you've
Oh,
done
no,
that
Brian,
intentionally.
that isn't fair. You went into
Well, no,
science.
he's doing well. He's offered me an opening right at this point to say, okay, you've used the word science, and this would be a claimed phenomena, right? Moon turns red. That would be an eclipse. Why?
Yeah.
What's the cause? Science is establishing the cause of the effect empirically. So, what exactly was done experimentally to establish the cause of that red moon? What was varied? What's the cause?
Well, they took into account the amount of blockage that by the globe Earth, which causes the shadow, and then they took into account earthshine and some other things, the scientific stuff, and that's how they know the color. It is.
Sorry, what's the independent variable, presumed cause of the effect, varied and manipulated to then induce the effect of the red moon? That was a long list of things that didn't sound very independent to me.
The movement of the globe.
Ah, I see. So independent variable, movement of presupposed spherical Earth debunked by Black Swan, effect, red moon. So how did you vary Earth as a sphere to induce the effect? Because you have to vary that as a researcher, Brian, to call it science.
Use time, Brian. Use time.
Yeah, time, exactly, Adam. Time. We just timed it. These things are established.
Just
for
wait, whoa.
I don't know what
Whoa.
Please,
Please, before you waffle. Just because Adam's come in and told you to use time. So you varied and manipulated time. So which one was it? Was it the TARDIS? Was it the DeLorean? Which one?
Well, we just waited, and then
that's not manipulating time. No,
we measured between those two times of waiting. Am I being muted again, Nathan?
What did you say?
He said
I being muted
again.
No, you weren't. No, far from it. But it's a nice thing to throw out there. Very on topic. Yeah.
Wait. So Nathan, I see your diagram from earlier, and I want to raise it with two more diagrams that I put in Master B from NASA. You were talking about your parallel light rays from the sun.
I would
Maybe
like
this
to
will help you out, Brian.
Thank you.
I would like to point out that's where I had Professor Phil Bell, where he defined manipulate as count the amount of.
Count the amount. That sounds like maths.
Well, he said that manipulate means to choose to count the amount of. So if you choose to count the amount of stars, you've manipulated heaven.
I see.
Wow.
This is one of the guys that wants to boycott the nurses.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. Right, Chocolate. You've put this up, so it's not really Brian's responsibility anymore. What are you saying? I covered this already. Muppet Vision. When do we see this?
I'm saying this counteracts your diagram that you had earlier. So you were asking Brian about parallel. Well, there you go.
And
Yeah,
when do we?
Parallel light rays.
When do we see this?
Yeah, Chocolate doesn't have doctor diagrams.
diagrams. When do we see this?
It does
See it
say
all the
it.
time.
It does say it is a diagram. It says, note this diagram is not to scale. And fundamentally, this model in the diagram seems to be able to cope with both a solar and lunar eclipse with his parallel lines. So I'm thinking Chocolate's evidence is outstanding.
Isn't it? Isn't it?
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
do we...
See, this is what happens when someone gets the correct diagrams, Nathan.
Fascinating. So when do we see this?
But we see it all. We see it with satellites, and NASA sees it. You know, we see it all the time.
You see the sun, moon, and Earth lined up like this. Okay, let's see that then, rather than the diagram.
It's out there. All you have to do is search for it.
Okay, let's have it. You're the ones appealing to me. My response, the response to me saying, when do we see this? Your response is, well, we see it all the time. Okay, well, it should be dead easy for you to get.
Well,
You can see it, but because of this, like, say, NASA's put this is not to scale, so you can appreciate it. But if we were to put it to scale, it'd be so small you wouldn't be able to appreciate it. So that's why we've done that diagram instead of just the real picture.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly, Adam.
I mean,
let's
I
see
got this from NASA. They're the subject matter experts. I don't know how you would denounce what they're saying.
Saying,
You know,
why is it that I
we
say
should
let's
trust them.
see something and I get told what we are justifying in terms of the scale of things?
Because
Okay.
you don't understand it.
Nobody wants to go and get me the image. You're justifying why I wouldn't appreciate the image if you did get it me. Fine. Where's the image
You
if we
wouldn't
had it?
understand
Not
all
that
stuff,
I'm getting
Nathan.
rumpus.
It's a
Am I-
complicated stuff, globe stuff you wouldn't understand. But flat earthers wouldn't understand it.
Thank you for that interjection. That's really kind of you. So, even though you haven't presented it, and I wouldn't appreciate it if you did present it, where's the image that you haven't presented been taken from?
Well, it's taken from outside of Earth. You know, where they go, they go off out into space.
Space, like outer space.
Yeah, they go off into outer space and they take these images. I mean,
Oh, well, then,
complicated stuff.
then I can say categorically that there is no image. That's why you were reluctant to offer it up when I asked you to show it me in reality with a picture or where we see it, because there is no outer space. If there was, then we'd all be dead. There'd be no gas to breathe. The gas would fill the space. The gas we're breathing.
Wait. Are you asking for an image or a photograph? Because I could probably find you an image somewhere depicting this nonsense. But photograph, then don't ask me that.
But I did ask for it, and I was told there was loads of them. And then I was told even if you did provide it, I wouldn't appreciate it because of the scale. That's why it says, note, this diagram is not to scale. So I said, okay, well, notwithstanding that I wouldn't appreciate it, and notwithstanding that you say there's loads of them, and notwithstanding that you haven't provided it to me, where would that image that you haven't provided, there's loads of them, and isn't to scale that I'd appreciate, taken from? You say space, outer space, which isn't a real place. It's like saying, well, they're in Narnia. Well, then they definitely don't exist then, because there is no outer space.
Oh, here we go, Bri. Here we go. You know, the next thing he's going to be saying, he's going to be trying to claim that the second law of thermodynamics applies to the Earth.
It does. It's a natural law.
Yeah. Like some flat earther would even understand the laws of thermodynamics.
And as if
They'll
they
be
apply to something as big as the Earth. That's just
What
ridiculous.
the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
There is a macroverse, a microverse, and then the world we experience.
Imagine
The
Neil.
macroverse-
Neil needs to keep kept up with what's going on because it has descended quite far into farce, which is reasonable. So earlier it was explained, I can't remember who gave the example. Imagine the nurse analogy when we're talking about the nurses in the nut house. And the nurses are being told that their patients want to boycott them. Well, they call nurse, nurse, nurse. Come and meet me outside so I can beat you up. Right? We're talking about them. Then take that analogy one step further, Neil, and we're all in the coffee room having a little laugh about the stupid nonsense that the madhouse patients say. That's what we're doing. So that's what's going on. Welcome to Penguin. Hold on, just a quick shout out to Gematria Wombat. Wow, what a name. Thank you for joining as a member, Gematria Wombat. Sorry, I didn't mean that to break up the flow so much. Yeah, we're in the nut
Is,
house. We're
Lite
having a
figure yet?
coffee. We're just taking the mick out of the people and the stupid shit they say, Neil. While smoking a fag and drinking coffee and going, yeah.
Okay.
Is Elijah here yet?
Yeah, Elijah's here. He's been here a while.
Oh, good.
I
Hello,
hyped him
gentlemen.
up on the QE show, but he has a question that could be a housekeeping question.
Ooh, let's hear it.
Well, let's preempt it.
Or did you beef that up then?
Hold on, Adam. So, in the
Not
last
yet.
show, I was told in the pre-show that Eli had got a question that had been put to John and a number of others, and the way it was phrased to me was, it made me feel disgusted because I couldn't overcome it in any way that was reasonable, or words to that effect. So it certainly piqued my interest, Eli. Mike's all yours if you're there.
Well, I don't know if I can summarize it, but we were having a conversation about water levels establishing a horizontal. And I was met with, objections saying, well, you can't bring that into an argument. And I said, why would I? Like, it's a propositional statement. It's something that you experience. And they just, it just kept going back to, well, but because of what horizontal means, you kind of can't say it because it presupposes that would be any length, I guess, over any area. And so if you were to apply it to the earth, X, Y, Z. And I kept saying, why would I need to do that other than what is practical for an area on the earth that I'm going to be using to establish, a level foundation for building? Like, why would I argue about the earth as a whole at all? Well, the only people that are trying to prove that level is equidistant to the center of the sphere, the people that are begging the question in the first place. So I asked, well, is there any evidence that level is equidistant from the center of the earth?
That's beautiful. You're right. Because it's their positive claim that's extraordinary. So, in terms of practical application, using a water level to establish level is a given. It's an axiom. You don't have to argue it. It's not an agree-disagree statement. So therefore, what you're left with when it comes to that assertion, and when it's debated, they need to make an extraordinary claim, which is that no, water level actually moves to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth debunked by the Black Swan. So is there any evidence that water level moves to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth? That is absolutely beautiful.
Brilliant.
What you
Say
dropping
it
in?
again, Eli. 'Cause
What you're
Nathan
dropping in?
ruined it.
Sorry.
It's the No, because this was getting. We just before going on flat sides, they were throwing it at me. How do we make it? And you just rattled it off there, and I felt as dirty as John did Friday night. So do it again. 'Cause that is brilliant.
Eli,
You nailed it.
can you repeat it? Because I got it
Yeah,
wrong.
we went through a couple of iterations. It was, is there any evidence that all horizontals are equidistant? But I just didn't like the wording because I don't know. I wanted to make it as simple as possible without, there was something about saying it like that or saying it like, is there any evidence that level is equivalent to equidistance on a sphere? Well, technically, yes. Like, if you're going to presuppose it. So the way that that's worded is wrong, in my opinion. So then I just said, okay, well, given that the Earth is what they claim, well, is there any evidence that level is equidistant with the center of the Earth? Because
Yeah,
they
but
already.
that's the best bit. Equidistant from the centre. Very clever. Very clever.
Is there any evidence that level is equidistant from the centre of a sphere?
You need to ask this
from the Earth, because from a sphere, yes. From the Earth, no.
Oh, that is so great.
No, because you've still got them. Because level is still not level on any sphere. If it's equidistant, it's not level. It just becomes equidistant from the center of the sphere. It's not level. That's why it's good. Because they have to presuppose everything and still face the reality of the contradiction in the definition.
Well, John,
Yeah, it's just a dirty film, no matter which way you go with it.
John, did you want to read the definition that you had sent me?
But surely we must give Bev some credit because he's banging on about this for a very long time.
Yes,
right.
And I said that I would. I said, yo, I'm going to give Bev credit because, you know, just upon hearing what Chocolate was saying about, I like how he razzled the ballers by not really making any claims. He can just say, well, water is level, the end. And they're like, look, you know, no, level is this, level is that, and yada, yada, yada. And so, you know, there were, you know, a couple of us that kind of got into an argument about it. And it just seemed reasonable to say that, well, if we're going to apply it, well, you're applying it to the earth, and then you're telling me to prove that I have to prove that it's not equidistant from the center of the sphere over 3 miles, 10 miles, whatever. And I'm like, well, that sounds like a burden of proof reversal fallacy off of handing me a begging the question fallacy.
Exactly what it is.
That's a very
My
good summary
statement
of
is
Has
exactly
he
what it is.
explained yet what he thinks is wrong with the Black
Jesus
Swan argument?
Christ.
It's not that. Hold on, Alwyn. It's more that it leaves them in a position where they're saying to you, or if they are saying to you, prove this axiom true. You're like, I'm not in a position to need to. It's an axiom. It holds true always. It's a principle. I don't have to argue about this. What's that? When you beg the question of a sphere Earth, that level moves to the centre of it. Well, that sounds like a lot of begging the question fallacies that you need to justify, not me.
Right. And the good thing about it is it's dealing with a positive claim that globe earthers make to Bev. And that's where he needs the credit for asking, for making the statement initially, for them to respond with that. And that's where a lot of this question is dealing, is in the responses Bev gets.
Yeah, so he's laid his neck out to get this, to have it be nuanced by us. So yeah, credit where credit's due to Bev. With that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who joined as a member, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, smashed the super chat and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley once again. Stay tuned if you're watching on a premiering stream, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a bang.